Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Owino Ogony. I am a course participant in the Institute for Educational Development East Africa at the Kano University. Uh, I'm going to make a seminar presentation on teenage pregnancy, and my presentation will focus on the definition of teenage pregnancy, the prevalence of teenage pregnancy. I'll also look at policies regarding teenage pregnancy in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and South Africa. And then I'll also look at the role of holistic school community insofar as a teenage pregnancy is concerned. You're most welcome to go with me through the presentation. Now, what is teenage pregnancy? There are so many definitions to teenage pregnancy that you would come across online, in books, in articles, and other written materials, as well as other recorded materials. But the overriding factor is that teenage pregnancy describes pregnancies that occur in girls aged between 10 and 19. That is the teen age between 10 and 19. Globally, World Health Organization asserts that almost 1/10 of the births among girls below 20 years old occur in developing countries. And Africa is one of the continents that have so many developing countries. That implies that you would find the occurrence of teenage pregnancies in Africa much more than maybe other continents across the world. Uh, when we look at policies regarding teenage pregnancy, we look at it in terms of how do the policies affect, or what provisions do the policies have for girls who become pregnant between the age of 10 and 19? Are they allowed to go back to school? Are they sent away from school? How do these policies affect them? And that is the main concern of my presentation. For instance, in Kenya, in 1994, a policy called the re-entry policy for girls after teenage pregnancy was muted, and this policy was made to enable teenage mothers re-enroll and complete their education free of stigma. So from 1994 onwards in Kenya, girls who become pregnant, teenage girls who become pregnant, are allowed to re-enter school. And when they re-enter school, the schools are required to take up certain measures that will enable these girls continue with their education to completion without stigma, without prejudice, without labeling, and all kind of negative connotations. In Uganda, in 2004, the government passed an national adolescent health policy, which aims at the reduction of teenage pregnancy among school-going children. So, in as much as this policy is meant to reduce the prevalence of teenage pregnancy, the policy also aims at improving readmission of the education system for the young mothers. That means, just like in Kenya, once they've given birth and their babies have reached a level that they can live with other adult members of the society, the government allows these children, these young mothers, to go back to school, get readmitted, and finish or complete their education. Tanzania, previously there was a kind of denial of girls who had become pregnant to get back to school. This was aimed at preventing them from getting pregnant, in the sense that there would there would be, it's more of like threat that if you become pregnant while a teenager, then that's the end of your education. And we know that these children, they need their education to an extent to make them live a successful life. But in 2020, the government of Tanzania changed tunes, and it announced that it would allow students who are pregnant, who are mothers, to enroll in parallel accelerated education program, what they called alternative education pathways. And this was to enable these girls to accelerate their education, to catch up with their peers who they were with before they became pregnant. So this announcement was made so that the girls would recover the time lost when they are nursing or when they are in their post-maternity period. Let's look at South Africa. In South Africa, teenage pregnancy policy was recently approved by the government. That was in January. It's supposed to start working in January 2022, where learners who become pregnant, teenage learners who become pregnant, or teenage girls who become pregnant, would go back, or are allowed to go back and continue with their education, just like as the male children or the males who might have impregnated them. So in a nutshell, what are we saying? That there is a growing concern that teenage pregnancy comes with a lot of loss in time, loss of education, loss of the precious time, and governments are making effort to enable these girls recover what they have lost during pregnancy, or allow them back to school so that they complete their education. This also implies that the learning loss that might have been experienced by these teenage girls or teenage mothers is to some extent recovered when they are admitted back to school through accelerated programs or through parallel programs, or just by readmission. The schools would execute certain remedial measures that would enable them to recover what they have lost. The prevalence of teenage pregnancy, I would look at three countries in terms of prevalence of teenage pregnancy. And in Kenya, first of all, the statistics, demographic statistics about that contain statistics about teenage pregnancy are quite scanty, because this data is collected after a certain period, so they may not be up to date. But I've tried to look at the recent statistics on prevalence of teenage pregnancy, and in Kenya, the National Council for Population and Development is a body that collects data on population and makes projections. This organization, this council, estimated that 13,000 young girls drop out of school each year to have children. That is quite a high rate of dropout. That's quite a high prevalence of teenage pregnancy in Kenya. Uganda Bureau of Statistics in 2020 reported that 1 out of 4 adolescents between 15 and 19 years become pregnant, with the rates being higher in rural than urban Uganda. So in Uganda, we see that although there is a national high rate of teenage pregnancy, the rate is higher in rural areas than in urban areas, probably because there are certain measures that have been taken by the governance of the urban part of Uganda. Maybe the kind of lifestyle, maybe it could be due to exposure, civilization, or things like that that would make girls be more aware of the need to stay safe, the need to live a life that is not contaminated with pregnancy, than in the rural part of Uganda where they might be lacking exposure, limited access to health education, and all that. In Tanzania, again, in 2020, Guttmacher Institute reported that 360,000 girls and young women aged 15 to 19 give birth every year. So in these three countries, we find that Tanzania seems to be having the highest number of the highest prevalence of teenage pregnancy. Maybe we may need to find out what is it that Tanzania is doing or not doing, or what is it about Tanzania that makes the prevalence rates to be that high. Is it because Tanzania could be having a higher population than these other East African countries? Is it because Tanzanian parents and caregivers have not been sensitized on how to prevent teenage pregnancies? Is it because in Tanzania girls get married at an early age or get engaged into sexual activities? And so many questions that we may need to ask ourselves, we may need to reinterrogate so that we understand this kind of figure. But all this notwithstanding, these children, the bottom line here is that these children require to go back to school and continue with their education. Now, when they go back to school to continue with their education, what measures have the education stakeholders put in place to enable them complete their education? What measures have the education stakeholders also put in place to enable that girls who are in school are safe? They are safe from teenage pregnancy, they're safe from early marriage, they're safe from this kind of incidences. So this brings us to the discussion of the role of the whole school curriculum. And what is a whole school curriculum? Many scholars describe a holistic school curriculum or a whole school curriculum as a philosophy of educating the whole person beyond core academics. What does this mean? It means that students, when they're in school, they need academics, yes, but they also need exposure to other things beyond uh, uh, the academics. They need to be taught life skills. They need to be taught other things that may not be found within the regular curriculum. So the whole school curriculum, holistic school curriculum, takes the form of education models where learners would go through experiential learning, self-guided learning, community learning, and interdisciplinary learning, where we bring in we a blend of experience, a blend of self, we blend the experience of the learner, we blend the self-guidance, we bring in the community and interdisciplinary component. All this will enable this learner to develop as a whole learner, not just focusing on academics, not just focusing on subjects and assessments and tests and quizzes, but we expose this learner to other things that they are likely to meet outside there. Take for example, when the learner goes out of the school, when the learner leaves the school or learner goes back home, there are certain things, certain experiences that this learner could go through that if are ignored while in the school, then this learner is likely to fall a victim of teenage pregnancy, drug and substance abuse, and what have you. So the whole school, holistic school curriculum is meant to prepare this learner to be aware of the dangers around them and how to fit in within the bigger society beyond the school. Now, when we're talking about the holistic school curriculum, As we prepare these learners for the community out there, as we prepare these learners to face life challenges and to be models to others and to succeed in life and to explore their potential, then we need to bring in the specific teaching strategies where the strategies would focus on building a strong student-teacher relationship. When there is a strong teacher-student relationship, then these students are likely to share with their teachers whatever bothers them, whatever challenges they've experienced in school and beyond school, so that the teachers help them to overcome the challenges. They're given the strategies to overcome the challenges. They're given the ideas on how to navigate life challenges that are beyond the core curriculum. This means that for a strong teacher-student relationship, the means of communication, the communication should be quite open, quite free, but again with a lot of confidentiality. Secondly, the teachers need to encourage self-confidence in the learner. So when they encourage self-confidence in the learner, then these learners are likely to tackle the challenges, maybe independently, or maybe they're able to brave through the storms of life that could sway them into teenage pregnancy, that could sway them into some substance abuse, that could sway them into other challenges that come with adolescence. And then lastly, incorporating emotional reflection. Reflection forms a very big part of the development of a learner. When the learners take their time to think about their lives, to think about what they're doing, and to think about where they want to go in life, it would enable them make certain decisions that would propel them to success. So when teachers incorporate emotional reflection among the learners, then what happens that these learners will be able to control their emotions. They will be able to manage negative emotions. They will also be able to face whatever challenges that they have. In a nutshell, is that teenage pregnancy is one of the pertinent and contemporary issues in developing countries, and there is a need for educators and other stakeholders to come together so that children who fall victim of teenage pregnancy are put in a situation or are encouraged to continue their education in a structured manner. Structured in the sense that when they lose time, when they lose content, when they lose touch during the mothering period, then there's need for recovery. There's need for them to recover what they have lost, the learning loss. And also there is also need to prepare them to be useful members of the society. That marks the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, and I welcome any question.